my role specifically here as the team lead for sales development is to help coach and mentor our SDR team, as well as bringing programs for our SDR team to basically deploy in their outreach. The first one that I think would help address that would be growth mapping. Is a really great strategy in my opinion. Traditionally we see, at least where I started in more of a junior sales type of top of funnel position. So I'd say that curiosity is definitely one of the things that at least we look for here at Fellow as well for our sales team hiring. With the understanding that as long as it's a reasonable initiative that you're trying to do, it's something that I think really goes a long way for all levels across the organization to genuinely have autonomy.
We are here with Austin Bukovec, Sales Development Team Lead for Fellow.app, a meeting productivity software where teams can meet to build agendas, record decisions, and keep each other accountable. Austin has been in sales for quite some time and has been on some great teams, so I'm excited to have his perspective on today. Austin, thanks so much for being with us.
Hey, Lisa, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Could you start by telling us more about Fellow.app, your role, and any previous experiences that led you there?
Yeah, definitely. So Fellow.app, as you mentioned, is our meeting productivity tool where we are able to have exceptional team meetings and make meetings more delightful for team members across any type of organization. So my role specifically here as the team lead for sales development is to help coach and mentor our SDR team, as well as bringing programs for our SDR team to basically deploy in their outreach. So some of those programs are working with our partnerships team, are working with people currently on a trial, maybe looking at some individuals that have tested out Fellow but never really got back to it. But that's ultimately what my role is here at Fellow. In the past, I've had roles at PepsiCo, where I was a field sales representative with Pepsi. So I was, again, responsible for going into grocery stores and ordering in product, working with store managers. It was a very front-end or front-level sales role. So again, in the trenches, nitty-gritty sales, I enjoyed it a lot of early mornings. And after showing some success in that role, I was able to transition into a kind of a sales analyst position, which is like a more analytical role where I was looking after forecasting sales volume, identifying some trade spend opportunities in the marketplace. And I was working with Sobeys, Safeway, national grocery chain here in Canada. And then spent about just a little under 2 years in that role. And I knew I kind of wanted to get into the software industry for a while, as I saw certain friends of mine on LinkedIn, to certain peers, people I was connected with, just sharing about the very interesting dynamic in the SaaS world. And so in March of 2021, ultimately decided to get into the BDR world, where I joined a company called Influitive. They were and they still are, a community engagement platform, like a customer advocacy, customer community-based platform that allows people to, gather insights from their top customer advocates. So I was a BDR there, learning the ropes of the SaaS industry from pipeline development, different sequence development, stuff like that. And I had a really good time there. I really enjoyed my time here in Halifax there on the BDR team. And after a little under, I think it was 8 or 9 months or so, I came across Fellow, and that's how I kind of ultimately ended up in this space and where I am today. And it's been a really interesting journey for me, very big dynamic, going from a large organization such as PepsiCo to a 50-person software company, and then now to it was 50 people, but now we're actually, I think, just under 75 here at Fellow today. So rapidly growing, and it's been a really cool journey.
Quite a journey for you in CPG turned SaaS. So
yeah,
there has been a lot of shifts in the world of sales, you would know, between competition, automations, platforms. What are some of the biggest challenges you see facing sales teams today, and how do you see that directly impacting retention?
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned retention. I think in the last 2 years specifically, retention is definitely a big challenge for sales teams, as different opportunities, different messages from recruiters every week or whatever that might look like. I'd say, to tackle retention, I would say that some of the main challenges that I've noticed are having like a hybrid work and dispersed team management, lacking maybe training and coaching on the job for their employees, and then also lacking of clear goals for long-term goals now, where it's more of a, maybe it's a negative word to say gig type economy, but you're definitely seeing a lot more turnover in the space over the last few years, like between like 1 to 2 years in each role. So I think for me, what I would say is like, or just kind of get my input on this, but I think that if teams are looking to, maybe increase their retention, some challenges that they would have to solve are the ones that I just mentioned there, where I think really focusing on like what the people that you're bringing into your organization to understand like what their working habits are, what their working dynamics are. Do they prefer, hybrid, fully remote, fully in person? I think that's something that a lot of organizations, including us here at Fellow, we're actively figuring out by the week, pretty much. So that one being the main one, I would say.
Now, the average sales turnover rate is 35% compared to other industries, which is 13%. And this number doesn't even factor in any impact that COVID had. What are 3 pieces of advice that you have for companies to motivate their sales teams, whether that's in regards to culture or perks and benefits or even leadership structure?
Yeah, I think for me the first one that, and maybe this is just based on my experience, but the first one that I think would help address that would be growth mapping. Is a really great strategy in my opinion. Traditionally we see at least where I started in more of a junior sales type of top of funnel position, where you're almost inclined to say, oh, just because I was an SDR or a BDR, I want to be an account executive. But what we kind of forget is that there's other paths as well to the other progression, other role progression, other than just the account executive. So in the SaaS space, we've got CSMs. You can either go into product or growth marketing, whatever that might look like. There are other roles that you could have conversations with your manager with about your interest in exploring them. And I think that sometimes the turnover is high because there's either giant compensation swings, but at the end of the day, I think by having, expectations and a goal set for your growth plan will provide you with more of like what you're working towards in the long run, which might make that experience a little bit enjoyable and help with retention for that. And then secondly, I think what I would say would be a pretty good one for that is having a really solid culture of autonomy. I think in certain sales positions, when you're having a lot of conversations, coaching sessions, there's frameworks that work for certain reps. There's frameworks that work for other reps. And I think by having a really solid culture of autonomy, you can allow your reps to, keep to your, company values and your company processes, but really allow them to know what's working for them and be able to have those conversations the way that they see fit and not be held to templates or stuff like that. It really, just to let them be a little bit more creative. We've seen a lot of really great success here on our SDR team by having like a really solid culture of autonomy for our reps to really experiment and trial out almost whatever they wish. So I think that's a pretty good point. And I think lastly would be, I know it's a bit of a challenging thing to, what's the question, like what motivates people? Other people that are motivated by strictly, compensation or monetary, by time off, by, learning sessions or learning programs. It's a really challenging question. So I think for a third point that I would say would help with like retention and motivating your sales team would be to truly like understand who these people are, like truly get an empathetic understanding of your sales team or your team, and really just understand what makes them tick, what their working styles are, because it's a very complex problem that sometimes can't be solved by a lunch on Friday or, something like that, or a coffee or whatever it is. These are, people's careers and livelihood. And I think by creating an environment where it's a really healthy relationship that you have with your team will enable them to, perform well and make them want to work with you and work for you in a collaborative way. So I think that, maybe it's just the books I'm reading right now on management, like Making of a Manager and High Output Management, that just finishing off reading, that's making me maybe think like this. But I do see the value in that as I'm starting to see certain things that I've learned be applicable into our workplace here at Fellow, and it's just cool to see that.
Awesome. I appreciate that answer so much. Just to highlight those points, growth mapping, autonomy, and empathy. I really do appreciate those. Now, you've been involved in multiple roundtable interviews for potential hires. When hiring for sales roles, what do you think are key traits that hiring managers should look out for that maybe sometimes they overlook?
Okay, yeah, it's really, really good question. I think just being on both ends of that hiring spectrum in the last few years, on both the interviewee and the interviewer side, I think one trait that's really stuck with me, even through my first few interviews when I was back in university, would be curiosity. So curiosity is something where I find it's really hard to coach. It's something that lives inside certain candidates, some more than others. But at the end of the day, curiosity, it's a cool thing. It's something that is sales. A lot of sales is asking questions, understanding problems, and just peeling back layers of what you think a problem is and how you can help solve that. So it's something that is a really genuine tool, and you can see it based on how that person is asking questions and what their body language is like, how engaged they are in the conversation. So I'd say that curiosity is definitely one of the things that at least we look for here at Fellow as well for our sales team hiring. And I think secondly, I would have to say is nailing the mock call or demo. A lot of candidates these days, especially where we're seeing, it's still, in my opinion, a bit of a candidates market. But a lot of candidates are very well prepared. They've done a lot of research. They know a lot about your company, and they're more than happy to share with you key wins or learnings from past experiences. But one thing I found that I think is really solid is part of our interview process here is participating in a mock call. And I think one thing that we've seen with the candidates that we've selected is that they've been not only they're great candidates from the questions and answers and some of the feedback they've given us throughout the interview, but they've really been solid with their mock call and their mock product demo. I think that's something that is a great way that you can really set yourself apart, is to really just nail a solid a mock call or demo when you're interviewing. And lastly, I would say probably like a third trait I would look for is coachability and just kind of responsiveness to feedback. Everybody handles and gives feedback differently. And I think, if you're generally open to, being coached and learning more on the job in role, I think that's another great trait that we look for here, or just any employer should look for.
Now, Austin, talk to us a little bit more about the culture, the perks and benefits within Fellow.app's SDR team and what the company does to attract competitive talent.
Yeah, so Fellow, in my experience so far, the last 7 months, truly has an amazing culture. Everyone here is genuinely really supportive, and it is it's just a great environment to be in, where there's so much collaboration amongst the different teams. So we're here on the sales team. Currently, since I've started here, I've worked with engineering teams, with our marketing team, with our growth team, and our customer success team, where we all have the same goal about providing a really memorable customer experience. And because a lot of us have that in mind, we are working together, and we're learning off of each other to really provide that experience to our customers. So I'd say that just having this environment where specifically our director, Joe, on our sales team here, he and along with the other managers at Fellow really provide autonomy. I know we've mentioned it before, but autonomy to our teams to trial out and experiment what it is we want to work with and what it is that we want to try out, with the understanding that as long as it's a reasonable initiative that you're trying to do, it's something that I think really goes a long way for all levels across the organization to genuinely have autonomy. And I'd also say that having a really strong leadership team is something for people in the company to either look up to and to learn from. It's something that at least has really inspired me. I love listening to our CEO's podcast as well as some of his old talks. It's a really motivating thing just to see how much the leadership team is involved and really cares about the success of the organization and its employees. We've got a really great retention rate here at Fellow, I think just under 95%. But yeah, it's a really great place to work, and I really enjoyed my time here.
And last question for you, Austin. At Solvable, we're all about what drives purpose and meaning for people at work. So I would love to know what drives purpose and meaning for you at Fellow.
Yeah, for me, I would say that, and it's more recently that I've came across this, but I think seeing the team that I work with, seeing the success that they're having from where we were as a team back in like April and December, seeing everyone really grow and have actual really concrete success in their role so far. So more recently, we were working with just our SDR team, where we were able to see some challenges that the team was having and how we can address those. So we were hosting some roundtables about how we can improve these things and different ways we can respond to certain types of inquiries or objections. And I think what's been really, motivating for me is to see the actual, sessions that we had and the solutions that we were able to develop from those sessions be applied into these real life conversations and turning those into book meetings and, qualified opportunities. That's something to me that I'd never been on a different side of that before. And it's been really inspiring to see, all the hard work that our team puts in, and from the sessions and from the coaching session, whatever that looks like. It's nice to see that the wins are coming from there. And alternatively, on a more personal level, it's been nice to be able to, for myself, I kind of support some different teams as well. So I do work closely with our partnerships team right now. It's been really cool for me to be able to kind of expand my, horizon of just working like strictly with our SDRs to help support our partnerships team with what our outbound outreach looks like, what our outbound program looks like for these, partners, companies that we're looking to partner with, but also seeing the success that we're having there and just being able to really impact concrete things for our business to be able to bring in new pipeline for our sales team to execute on. It's been very rewarding.
Austin, thank you so much for being on with us today. And thank you all for listening to Architects of Contemporary Hiring.
Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure.